You know what I think? Universal Studios Florida might be cursed to get bad attraction after bad attraction. The 2010s was a rough era where most of its classic rides were replaced with screen-based attractions that, for the most part, have been met with a lot of criticism. Even with rides like Gringotts or Transformers that are pretty decent in a bubble, it doesn't help that the park is just absolutely oversaturated with what feels like slight variations of the same experience. However, where we've seen Universal really turn things around in their other parks through numerous attractions that have been astounding in their quality, why did Universal Studios Florida get half-baked experiences like VillainCon or DreamWorks Land? It's obvious to me that these were done quickly and on the cheap because of Epic Universe opening soon. But even so, why is this park cursed to always receive poor attractions? That's not to say that the park isn't fun. In fact, I would even go so far as to claim that part of what makes it worth visiting is the few remaining attractions from its original era where movie making was the central theme. Animal actors and the horror makeup show are always a great time even if dated. E.T. is the cult classic that has become widely loved, and Revenge of the Mummy is the last true ride from this era and still holds up as the best attraction in the park still to this day. But that's it, right? Well, a classic attraction from this era that everyone seems to forget about is Men in Black Alien Attack. Yeah, it's one of those rides where when someone mentions it, you think to yourself, oh yeah, that is a good ride, but I just forgot about it. But that's really strange, isn't it? I mean, its scale is massive, and from a design standpoint, it's not just one of the best attractions Universal has ever created, but I think ranks among some of the best attractions in the world. The queue is notable for containing animated figures, its sets are detailed and interesting, and it's probably the best shooting ride ever designed. Is that why it's overlooked? Because its game mechanics make it seem less like a traditional dark ride? I don't really know why Men in Black often gets forgotten, but after having been around and standing strong for 25 years now, I wanted to produce a video that highlights why it's so great. Because truly, it is the world's most underrated attraction. In the back of Universal Studios Florida near Amity Island, the park premiered with a set from Swamp Thing, a 1990 USA Network show that ran through 1993. However, with the 1994 demolition of the set, the land was cleared up in anticipation for a Jurassic Park attraction that would have been similar to Jurassic Park the Ride, which opened in the Hollywood Park in 1996. After plans for Islands of Adventure were reworked, and Jurassic Park became the anchor land with its own version of the River Adventure, the former Swamp Thing set was marked for a new e-ticket attraction, based of course on the hit 1997 film Men in Black. With the opening of Islands in the summer of 1999, Universal was afraid that foot traffic to Universal Studios Florida would decline, as people might choose to visit just the new park. According to the Tampa Bay Times, this turned out to be true after the studio saw a 9% drop in attendance, but Universal anticipated and attempted to counter this with the opening of Men in Black Alien Attack in April of 2000. While this unfortunately didn't do much to raise park attendance due to economic uncertainty and a botched marketing campaign from Universal, Men in Black was absolutely designed to be a massive new e-ticket with powerful appeal, not just through the relevance of the IP at the time, but also just through how ambitious its attraction design was. With how the park has evolved, Men in Black has unfortunately become a supplemental D-ticket experience that's tucked into the back of the park, and I think it's easy to forget just how impressive this was 25 years ago. The world's first shooting attraction where you rode in a vehicle and hit targets with a laser opened as Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin at the Magic Kingdom in 1998. Men in Black improved on this technology while also building a much larger and more interesting ride, and to this day, I still think that this is the definitive version of this genre of attraction. I think that part of why it lost popularity is because shooting-based dark rides are oversaturated in the industry, and so it's easy to forget how strong of an attraction it is. Admittedly, the facade is rather unremarkable, despite how I like its mid-century design, but the entrance is at least notable for incorporating the UFOs from the film's version of the 1964 New York World's Fair. The facade is actually viewable from the other side of the park in New York, which is an interesting bit of sightline cohesion, but part of what actually dates the facade is how out of place it feels. When Back to the Future the Ride opened in 1991, its building and adjacent restaurant were designed to convey a World's Fair theme in an area known as Expo Center. When Men in Black opened, the area was renamed as World Expo, with the new building complementing the aesthetic of Back to the Future. Unfortunately, when Back to the Future closed and reopened as the Simpsons ride in 2008, the new garish carnival aesthetic, and later, the 2013 edition of Springfield, both clashed wildly with the Men in Black building. I think this also somewhat contributed to its decline in popularity, as by isolating it visually, it lost a lot of its appeal when the rest of the land changed. Moving inside the building though, that's where things get a lot more interesting. On initially entering the outside portion of the queue, there are signs that introduce the idea that you're entering The Universe and You, an educational attraction that tackles the subject of life beyond Earth. While Universal does not appear to run the pre-show consistently, on stepping inside into the lobby, park guests are usually packed in and are met by a team member who announces that they'll be embarking on a 3-hour educational walking tour, which is obviously played off ironically as a form of comedy. Walking off to the side, they trigger an audio segment where a series of narrators begin the tour, but suddenly, the program is terminated and access is granted for MIB training. The faux wall opens to reveal a hidden elevator, and guests step in, experiencing a simulated descent under the pavilion and into a top-secret MIB facility. On exiting, the queue continues past a directory and a series of doors with outlandish and comedic designations. Looking to the left on the upcoming bend, a prominent queue element features an MIB break room, which is notable through containing 2 animated figures of annelids. They don't move much, but for the time that the attraction debuted, animated figures in a queue was actually rather rare. Continuing down the hall, you pass by a bulletin board full of detail and Easter eggs, which unfortunately, you often pass by too quickly to actually read. The queue now opens up into immigration control, where looking down from the balcony above, this is an impressive reveal where 2 figures of alien twins are at the controls of the department. While not as impressive today, the size of this room was quite remarkable for its time, and I appreciate that Universal went for show over functionality. Something that a lot of park guests are unaware of is that a number of rides actually have tours that you can take if you ask for them, and the ride has adequate staffing to spare a person, usually when it's less busy. One of the more interesting options is here at Men in Black with what they call the Immigration Tour, where you're walked through the queue and actually allowed down into immigration control. It's a pretty cool experience where you can sign your name into an immigration log and view Easter eggs on the paperwork throughout the desks. It's also a good opportunity to view some of the queue elements up close, such as the waiting area where a game of cards is being played, and of course, you get to meet the twins up close and take photos with them. If you're fortunate enough to get the tour, it's a standout experience not just for these elements, but also because it feels like you're being allowed into a place that you really shouldn't, which gives it a feeling of exclusivity. Moving on, as if you were waiting through the queue though, you pass through immigration and into the weapons room, which is decorated with glass cases filled with weapons fit for fighting extraterrestrials. While the Men in Black franchise isn't as relevant as it once was, you'll spot some identifiable pieces from the film if you're a fan, and as you walk through the line and browse the cases, an instructional video plays above, providing information about loading into the vehicles and using your blasters against the alien threat. It's a small detail, but if you look to your right as you walk among the cases, there are also lockers with hazmat suits, along with a thematic photo display of MIB recruits in the training vehicles to give riders a sense of what the attraction is like. Walking out from the weapons room, the building opens up into the loading platform, where you then board your vehicle and begin your training. I don't think that the Men in Black queue is the best that I've ever been through, but I think it's certainly up there, and is remarkable for a number of reasons. It was not the first to introduce an elevator pre-show, as that credit goes to the Hydrolators at the Living Seas in Epcot, but at the time that Men in Black premiered, this was still a remarkably novel element, and a great way to immerse you into the story of the attraction. Once inside the facility, the rest of the queue adopts a minimalist aesthetic, which normally I'm a critic of in theme park design, but here, it works to reinforce the mid-century architecture. It's also important to point out that there's appropriately placed detail as well, such as in the break room, on the desks of immigration, and in the display cases of the weapons room. The scale is also notable because it's just outright unnecessary, but in the era that this was built, Universal took extra steps to create something cool when they didn't need to. And again, it's remarkable that there are animated figures in the queue as well, which was rare to see at the time. I think the queue for Men in Black often gets overlooked because it's just so short. But really, along with the brief pre-show elevator and its other notable elements, I think that this is actually one of the best queues ever built. Before discussing the ride portion, I do want to warn you that there will be a lot of strobing lights now and through the end of the video. In the station, you board one of two ride vehicles on either side, and they dispatch in tandem as if you are teams of recruits being pitted against one another. Once you board the vehicle and it leaves the station, you first pass by an animated figure of an alien agent under the stairs, and you first begin by moving into the target range, where you'll test your skill with the blasters attached to the vehicle. As you reach the end of the range, the training sequence is aborted, as you're informed by Agent Zed that an alien spaceship full of bad guys just crash landed in the city, and emerging out from the facility, your blaster is set to full power to take out the enemies. First, encountering the crash site, you pass by aliens who pop out from the crashed ship, and turning to face forward, you move into the city where the various aliens cause chaos. After Agent Zed warns that they could be hiding anywhere, a larger figure pops out from behind a stack of crates, and, firing his shoulder cannon, the vehicles spin out of control as if they've been hit. Recovering, you continue forward as the city is being vandalized and looted, and the two vehicles now split, being sent into separate dark alleyways. First encountering a single alien who declares that it's 6 against 1, it's quickly revealed that you've rolled into an ambush, and aliens appear from everywhere, firing at your vehicle and causing it to spin out yet again. Recovering, you pass by a park with alien eyes looking out from the trees, and next move through an underpass. With Agent Zed reporting in that some bugs have infested the MIB fleet, you and the other vehicle turn to face each other and are scanned for invasive life forms. It's then revealed that the people in the other transport are invaders in disguise, and moving through the tunnel, you're tasked with aiming for the fusion exhaust port to take them out. Hitting it not only scores you a significant amount of points, but it causes the other riders to spin out of control. Emerging out from the tunnel, you then find yourself in Times Square with aliens hiding off to the side, and on the large monitor in the middle of the city, Agent J warns you about a bug that's bigger than all the rest. Turning around, you encounter the massive creature as you're swallowed up into its jaws, and by pushing the red button on your vehicle, it not only adds 100,000 points to your score, but defeats the alien from inside by detonating your subatomic thermal disruptor, causing your vehicles to spin wildly in the process. This happens whether or not you actually hit the button, but now victorious, you jump to a new scene where you meet Agent J again, who compares the average scores between the vehicles of recruits, praising one and making fun of the other. Depending on how well you scored, regardless of if you beat the other vehicle or not, if you score lower than 150,000 points, you turn to the inside and see an animated figure of a cigar-wielding alien known as the Coach, who essentially asks you to try again. If you're over the threshold, you instead turn to the outside of the track and are shown an alien tailoring your suit as you're inducted into the Men in Black. Finishing out the scene, you're rated as either Bug Bait, Cosmically Average, or as a Galaxy Defender, and moving into the final hall, you meet Agent J for the last time, whose dialogue changes depending on your score. Regardless of how well you did, he uses the neuralizer to erase your memory through a simple flashbulb effect, and then you return to the unload station, which is designed as the exhibit for the universe and you, as if nothing had happened on the tour. Moving upstairs to exit the building, you encounter a door with a screen that portrays an annelid getting into trouble, and on walking down the exit hall, the door automatically opens sending you into the photo area. There's not a lot to see here, although the Men in Black wrap does play overhead, and there's a planter with sand and some plants, which I suppose is meant to evoke the idea of aliens in Roswell. Moving into the exit store, known as the MIB Gear Shop, it can come off as a bit generic, but aesthetically does fit the World Expo theme. My only true complaint about the attraction is the smell in this shop, which I thought about not mentioning because it's so weird, but it smells specifically like flamingo poop in here. I know that's such an incredibly specific negative to point out, especially since you must be wondering why I even know what that must be like. However, in Central Florida, flamingos are everywhere, whether it's SeaWorld, Discovery Cove, Busch Gardens, or pretty much every single zoo, and their smell is distinctly acidic. I have no idea why the MIB Gear Shop smells like a flock of flamingos passes through here every day, but if you know what I'm talking about, you'll never not smell it every time you walk through. Part of why I wanted to produce this video is because back in the fall of 2024, I was on the ride and the vehicle stopped. For the 5 minutes or so that this occurred, I looked around and was able to observe so much detail that you otherwise wouldn't notice, and made me realize just how much time and effort went into creating this attraction. If you took away the interactive shooting aspect, Men in Black is an interesting dark ride with a lot of visual interest through all of its scenes, and is one of those rare cocktail party type of experiences like Pirates of the Caribbean or the Haunted Mansion, where you move slowly through the ride, but there's so much happening that there's always something new to notice every time you experience it. While there are limitations on the movement of the aliens, many of which are just static targets high up in the windows, that's understandable, as the shooting gameplay takes precedence. It's not perfect, because when I look at Space Ranger Spin, I see clear targets for riders to aim towards, but in Men in Black, what you're actually supposed to hit is not always clear, especially with the more advanced figures. After many rides over decades at this point, it's clear to me that any areas that light up on the aliens, especially with their eyes, are where you should aim, but because the attraction is focusing more on immersion rather than putting targets in front of you, I can forgive less intuitive gameplay. Normally, gameplay that is anything more than the simplest mechanics can either sink an attraction, or at the very least lead to polarizing reception, but because Men in Black is such a visually interesting dark ride on its own, it makes up for the lack of clear targets, and is, in my opinion, the definitive attraction of this genre. While Space Ranger Spin also gave you a joystick so you could turn or spin your vehicle to aim at certain targets, Men in Black spinning mechanics are obviously very different, allowing for thrilling moments where you're attacked by the enemies. Part of what makes shooting attractions engaging is the competition aspect, and usually you're competing with people in your own car. However, I like how Men in Black changes this up by not only allowing you to compete with your paired vehicle, which results in different endings, but the segments where you have to actively take aim at the other riders and spin them out is always a lot of fun. This is especially true when you can tell that they don't understand the ride, and you're constantly causing them to spin wildly for a bit of vindictive amusement. As an overall experience, Men in Black Alien Attack is just really strong attraction design. Its queue has a fun pre-show sequence, the actual queue elements take the extra step to be interesting, and as a ride, there is so much visual interest on top of the fun gameplay that there's always something new to see. I don't really understand why this ride seems to be so forgotten, especially when it stands out among the endless screen attractions in the park, and so, part of why I wanted to produce this video was to shine a spotlight back on what I think is one of the best attractions ever designed, not just at Universal, but in the industry. The ride deserves to be considered among the world's best attractions, and while I see people often having fun when debating attraction rankings, I don't think that any are as truly, legitimately underrated as Men in Black. It's actually really strange how an experience this strong just falls under the radar of so many people, and so hopefully through this video, I was able to highlight what makes it a true standout among Universal's attraction lineup. Part of why I produce videos is because I use this as a platform to influence discourse. And so, if you also agree that Men in Black is wildly underrated, you can help spread that message by just simply leaving a like on the video to give it more exposure. As always though, if you enjoy videos like these and have not yet hit the subscribe button with bell notification, you can do so now to be alerted to new videos as they're released.